Can you imagine the nerve of it? A woman, seemingly ordinary, dressed in a plain gray sweatshirt, standing tall in a courtroom buzzing with mockery, only to turn the tables and shock them all as the new judge, Catherine Sullivan. Oh, how she held her ground despite their sneers. Judge Montgomery, with his silver hair and booming laugh, led the courtroom in ridiculing her casual clothes and bold questions. Little did they know, that faded sweatshirt hid the fierce woman destined to don their sacred robes. That morning, Catherine Sullivan, at 45, stood before her mirror, deliberately choosing her disguise. A soft gray sweatshirt over a simple black t-shirt, worn jeans hugging her legs, and comfy sneakers. 2 decades she'd fought her way up the legal ladder, from a scrappy public defender to a revered district judge. But today called for something different. No tailored suits, no polished judicial air. She tucked a stray strand of brown hair behind her ear, staring at a reflection that screamed nobody special. And that was the plan. Her formal headshot, pinned to her recent appointment letter, was a world apart from this unassuming figure. 1 week, she whispered, smoothing her sweatshirt, her heart racing. Just 1 week, until she'd claim her place on the bench at the county courthouse, replacing the retiring Judge Montgomery. That courthouse, notorious for its cold dismissal of everyday folks, where those without fancy lawyers faced harsher fates. Could she change it? Catherine's career was built on fairness, on holding the system accountable. When Chief Justice Abrams offered her this role, she didn't just say yes. She demanded a chance to see the courtroom's true colors. "You want to do what?" Abrams had gasped, her eyebrows shooting up. "I need to see how they treat people when no one important is watching," Catherine insisted, her voice steady. "No special treatment, no acting for the big shots. I want the raw truth." Abrams, though hesitant, gave in. "Your official introduction is next Monday," she said. "Until then, you're a ghost." Oh, how Catherine relished the challenge. She glanced at her watch. 10 a.m. was nearing for the Richardson case. A simple hearing dragged out over 3 agonizing years. The case file screamed injustice. Constant delays when the Richardsons' court-appointed lawyer asked for time, yet the slick Carson and Mitchell counsel got every request fast-tracked. Grabbing her worn leather bag, she slipped in her credentials and appointment letter, just in case. But reveal herself today? No way. This was a stealth mission, pure reconnaissance. Her heart pounded. Would she see what she feared? Driving to the courthouse, Catherine parked in the public lot, shunning the reserved judicial spots. As she stepped through the grand entrance, she melted into the crowd. Worried families, fidgeting defendants, curious spectators. Not a single head turned her way as she breezed through security. Following faded signs, she reached courtroom 3, its towering wooden doors looming like a warning. She'd seen it too often. The very design of justice could crush the spirit of those it should protect. Slipping inside, she claimed a back row seat, her eyes sharp, her pulse quickening. What would she uncover? The courtroom hummed with activity. Lawyers in crisp suits strutted about, clerks shuffled papers, and the court reporter set up her station. The Richardson family huddled together, mother and father flanking their daughter Emma, whose college dreams had been shattered by alleged financial advisor fraud. Catherine's stomach twisted as she watched the bailiff joke with the defense attorney, barely sparing the Richardsons a glance. And when Emma, timid and trembling, asked the clerk about their lawyer's whereabouts, the clerk's eye roll was vicious. "He'll show up when he shows up," she snapped. "Sit down." How could they treat her like that? The air shifted as the side doors swung open, and Judge Montgomery swept in, his black robes flowing like a dark tide. In his 60s, with a commanding presence honed over 30 years, he demanded instant respect. All rise. The bailiff bellowed, and Catherine stood, her resolve hardening. Today, she wasn't Judge Sullivan. She was just another face in a system that too often ignored the vulnerable. Could she stay silent? The hearing kicked off with cold formalities. Montgomery called the Richardson case with a bored flick of his wrist. His glasses perched low on his nose. Catherine noticed how he greeted the defense counsel by name, all warmth and familiarity, while dismissing the plaintiffs as the other party. When the Richardsons' lawyer, Mr. Davis, stumbled in 10 minutes late, panting apologies, Montgomery's scorn was biting. Mr. Davis, your disregard for this court's schedule is, as always, impressive, he drawled, sparking chuckles from the courthouse regulars. Catherine's heart ached as Emma shrank lower, her parents' worried glances darting between them. This was their future on the line? Didn't anyone care? 20 minutes in, Catherine's frustration boiled over. The defense attorney had snagged yet another extension for document discovery, while Mr. Davis's plea for the same was swatted away like a fly. Before she could stop herself, she was on her feet. "Excuse me," she called, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. Silence fell, heavy and stunned. Every eye locked on her, the woman in the gray sweatshirt, daring to disrupt their sacred proceedings. Who did she think she was? Judge Montgomery's head snapped up, irritation flashing in his eyes. "Ma'am, this isn't a public forum. Sit down or leave my courtroom." Catherine didn't flinch. "I apologize, Your Honor, but isn't there an inconsistency here? If the defense gets extra time for discovery, why not the plaintiffs?" The defense attorney gaped, affronted. Murmurs buzzed through the room. The Richardsons, wide-eyed, clung to a flicker of hope. Had someone finally spoken for them? Montgomery's face reddened. "And you are?" he demanded. "A concerned observer," Catherine replied, her tone calm but firm. "Well, concerned observer," Montgomery sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. "When you've passed the bar and practiced law for 30 years, maybe your opinion will matter. Until then, sit down, or I'll have you removed." Laughter rippled from the attorneys, and the bailiff edged closer. Catherine held her composure. Though humiliation stung, this wasn't about her ego. She needed to see how far Montgomery would push. Would he crush anyone who dared challenge him? "I understand," she said, easing back into her seat. "Thank you for clarifying, Your Honor." But Montgomery wasn't done. Leaning forward, his eyes narrowed. He studied her like a predator sizing up prey. "Actually," he said, yanking off his glasses with a flourish, "since our visitor is so invested, perhaps she'd like to enlighten us further." The room held its breath. Catherine felt the weight of every stare. "You," Montgomery jabbed a finger at her, approached the bench. A deathly hush enveloped the courtroom. The court reporter froze, her fingers hovering. The Richardsons watched, eyes wide with shock, as Catherine rose and walked calmly to the bench. Up close, Montgomery's contempt was palpable. He sneered down at her, his gaze raking over her casual outfit. "Your name, for the record?" he barked. "Catherine Sullivan," she answered, unflinching. "And what's your stake in this, Miss Sullivan? Friend of the plaintiffs? Family? Maybe. I'm an observer with an interest in judicial procedure," Catherine said coolly. Montgomery's eyebrows shot up. "An observer? With an interest in judicial procedure?" he mocked, his tone painting her as absurd. "And where, pray tell, did you get your legal education, Miss Sullivan?" She could have dropped the bombshell. Yale Law, 2003 honors graduate. Instead, she kept it simple. "I've studied the law, Your Honor." Oh, how that set him off. Montgomery threw back his head and laughed, the sound echoed by snickers from the attorneys and staff. The defense attorney smirked. while even the Richardsons' lawyer looked mortified for her. "You've studied the law," Montgomery crowed, air quoting with glee. How profound. "And with this vast knowledge, you think you can interrupt my courtroom and question my rulings?" Catherine stood firm, her heart steady. She'd expected this. Let him dig his own grave. Could she keep her cool under this fire? "I was only pointing out what seemed like inconsistent procedure," she said evenly. "What seems inconsistent to an amateur often has solid legal grounding." Montgomery shot back, which you'd know if you had any real expertise. He swept his arm wide. "Ladies and gentlemen, behold our legal genius. Shall we all bow to Ms. Sullivan's wisdom?" The gallery erupted in laughter, but Catherine caught a few uneasy faces, spectators who saw the cruelty in this public shaming. Did they feel the injustice too? "Tell me, Miss Sullivan," Montgomery pressed, savoring his moment, "in your expert opinion, how should I rule today?" It was a trap, plain and simple. Answer, and she'd overstep, stay silent, and he'd proclaim her irrelevant. "I wouldn't presume to dictate your ruling, Your Honor," she said carefully. "I was just advocating for fair procedure." "Advocating?" Montgomery's voice spiked. "You have no right to advocate anything here. This isn't some online chat where every nobody gets a say." His face hardened. "This is a court of law, Miss Sullivan, built on centuries of rules and expertise. Your sweatshirt and good intentions don't qualify you to challenge me." The defense attorney nodded smugly. The bailiff smirked. Did they think they'd won? "Next time you feel like playing lawyer," Montgomery went on, "try showing up with proper attire and credentials, or at least some basic courtroom manners." He waved her off. "Back to your seat. Disrupt again, and you're out." "Clear, crystal clear, Your Honor," Catherine replied, her voice steady despite the sting. As she walked back, she caught Emma Richardson's defeated gaze. Did this confirm the girl's worst fears, that justice wasn't for people like her? Catherine's resolve hardened. She wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. Oh, the audacity. Judge Montgomery leaned back in his chair, his laughter booming through the courtroom, echoed by snickers from attorneys and staff who knew his temper all too well. The defense attorney's smirk was shameless, while the Richardsons' lawyer, poor soul, looked mortified for Catherine. "You've studied the law," Montgomery mocked, wiggling his fingers in air quotes. How enlightening. "So, Miss Sullivan, you think your little study session qualifies you to barge into my courtroom and challenge my rulings? Can you believe the nerve of this man?" Catherine, though, stood like a rock, her composure unshaken. "I was just pointing out what seemed like an inconsistent procedure," she said, her voice steady as steel. Montgomery wasn't having it. "What looks inconsistent to an amateur," he snapped, "often has a rock-solid legal basis, something you'd grasp if you had a shred of real expertise." He flung his arms wide, playing to the crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a legal prodigy among us. Should we all just bow to Miss Sullivan's wisdom?" The gallery erupted in laughter, but Catherine caught the uneasy glances of a few spectators. Did they see this for what it was, a cruel public shaming? Were they as powerless as they felt? "Tell me, Miss Sullivan," Montgomery pressed, his eyes glinting with delight. "In your oh-so-educated opinion, how should I rule today?" It was a trap, plain as day. Answer, and she'd overstep. Stay quiet, and he'd crow that she was out of her depth. "I wouldn't dare tell you how to rule, Your Honor," Catherine replied, choosing her words with care. "I'm only advocating for fair procedural allowances." "Advocating?" Montgomery's voice spiked, his face reddening. "You have no right to advocate anything in my courtroom. This isn't some online forum where every nobody gets to yap." He leaned forward, his glare icy. This is a court of law, Miss Sullivan, built on centuries of rules and expertise. Your ratty sweatshirt and good intentions don't give you the right to question how I run things." The defense attorney nodded smugly, and even the bailiff smirked. Did they think they'd crushed her spirit? "Maybe next time you feel like playing lawyer," Montgomery sneered. "Try showing up in proper attire with actual credentials, or at least a hint of courtroom etiquette." He waved her off like a pesky fly. "Back to your seat. Disrupt my court again, and you're out." "Got it. Perfectly clear, Your Honor," Catherine answered, her voice calm despite the sting of his words. As she turned, her eyes met Emma Richardson's. The young woman's face crumpled, as if Catherine's humiliation confirmed her worst fears. Justice wasn't for folks like them. Oh, how that look pierced Catherine's heart. She'd seen enough. But was she really done? Catherine returned to her seat, her dignity intact, despite the public roasting. The courtroom buzzed back to life. But something had shifted. Curious glances darted her way. Courthouse regulars whispered, their heads tilted. Montgomery ruled as expected, favoring the defense's motion while dismissing the Richardsons' plea. Catherine scribbled furiously in a small notebook, jotting down times, statements, rulings, every detail that screamed bias. Was she building a case against this courtroom's injustice? During a brief recess, a court clerk, Martha Jenkins, stared at Catherine with unnerving intensity, her head cocked, as if puzzling out a mystery. Catherine kept her face neutral, but her heart skipped. Martha must have seen the judicial newsletter announcing her appointment. The defense attorney sidled up to Montgomery at the bench. Their cozy chat and shared chuckles, with sly glances at the Richardsons, only deepened Catherine's suspicions. Was this the old boys' club she'd feared? When court resumed, Montgomery seemed off, his eyes flicking toward Catherine. Had Martha whispered something? Or was Catherine's calm defiance rattling him? "Your Honor," the defense attorney purred. "Given today's events, we propose a settlement conference to wrap this up." Montgomery nodded, all too pleased. "A sensible idea. Counselor, let's avoid more delays." Catherine watched the Richardsons huddle with their attorney, who pushed for any deal. Emma's eyes brimmed with tears. Did she feel her fight slipping away? Montgomery, as if sensing Catherine's gaze, addressed the room. "Let me remind all observers," he said, his eyes boring into hers. "Settlement talks are confidential. Interfere, and you'll face removal and contempt charges." Was that a direct shot at her? As the attorneys vanished into the conference room, Catherine slipped out, her heart racing. She checked her watch. Nearly noon. In the hallway, she spotted Chief Justice Abrams striding toward courtroom 3, a court administrator clutching a leather portfolio at her side. Catherine hurried to the ladies' room, her mind spinning. She needed a moment to plan her next move. Her undercover mission had confirmed it all. Favoritism, intimidation, a blatant bias against ordinary folks. Could she really shake up this system? The bathroom door creaked open. "Judge Sullivan?" Martha Jenkins stood there, her face a mix of shock and realization. "It's you, isn't it? I saw your appointment notice, but why are you dressed like that? Why did Montgomery?" Catherine turned, a finger to her lips. "It's complicated, Martha," she said softly, "and it's about to get wilder." She reapplied her lipstick, her hands steady, watching Martha's stunned reflection. "This wasn't how I planned my day," she admitted, snapping the lipstick shut. Martha glanced nervously at the door. "Montgomery humiliated you in front of everyone. If he knew who you were." "He doesn't," Catherine said, facing her squarely. "Not yet. Can you keep this quiet just a bit longer?" Martha wavered. "The Chief Justice is here. They're gathering in courtroom 3 for an announcement." Her eyes widened. "It's about you, isn't it? Your introduction." Catherine nodded. "Moved up from next week, it seems." The Chief Justice wasn't thrilled with my sneaky approach. "I've got to go," Martha said, panicking. "They'll notice I'm gone." "Go ahead," Catherine said, "but give me a moment, okay? I want to walk in when everyone's there." Alone, Catherine took a deep breath, smoothing her sweatshirt. This wasn't the grand entrance she'd imagined, but maybe it was perfect. She'd seen the courtroom's ugly truth firsthand. Back in courtroom 3, chaos simmered. The Richardsons returned from the settlement talks, defeated, while the defense team grinned smugly. Montgomery, now pale, argued with Chief Justice Abrams. "Introduce her today?" he hissed. "I haven't even met her." Abrams, a steely woman in her 60s, fixed him with a cool stare. "She's been watching your courtroom, Richard. You've made quite the impression." Montgomery's face drained of color. "What do you mean, Eleanor?" Before she could answer, the doors swung open, and Catherine stepped in, ready to turn their world upside down. Was this the moment justice would shift? Oh, what a moment. Catherine Sullivan strode into the courtroom, her gray sweatshirt and jeans, a stark contrast to the authority radiating from her every step. The room fell deathly silent. Judge Montgomery's eyes widened, his face paling as he recognized the woman he'd mocked just an hour ago. "No," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Could this really be happening? Catherine approached the bench, offering a respectful nod to Chief Justice Abrams before turning to the stunned gallery. "For those who don't know me," she declared, her voice ringing with unshakable clarity, "I'm Catherine Sullivan. As of next Monday, I'll be the presiding judge of this court, taking over after Judge Montgomery's retirement." Gasps echoed through the room, murmurs buzzing like wildfire. The defense attorney's smug grin vanished, replaced by shock. The Richardsons, bewildered at first, lit up with amazement. Was this their champion? "I must thank Judge Montgomery for today's eye-opening display of his courtroom ways," Catherine continued, locking eyes with him. "It's been truly enlightening." Montgomery's jaw twitched, his once towering confidence crumbling. Chief Justice Abrams stepped forward, her gaze sharp. "Judge Sullivan insisted on observing this court before her official start." Her methods were. She shot Catherine a wry look, unorthodox, to say the least. But her commitment to understanding this court's inner workings is nothing short of admirable. The court administrator flipped open a leather portfolio, pulling out documents stamped with the state's Supreme Court seal. "I'd planned a formal ceremony next week," Abrams said, her voice commanding. "But since we're all here, Richard Montgomery, after 30 years, we honor your retirement, effective this Friday." She turned to Catherine. "Catherine Sullivan, the governor has confirmed your appointment to this bench, with full duties starting Monday morning." Catherine accepted the papers with a solemn nod, her heart pounding. "I'm eager to serve this community with fairness and respect," she said, her gaze sweeping the room before resting on the Richardsons. "Every soul in this courtroom deserves to be heard with dignity, no matter their status or representation." For the first time that day, Emma Richardson's face broke into a hopeful smile. Could justice finally be theirs? The courtroom was frozen, a stunned silence gripping every corner. Montgomery stood rigid, his authority shrinking before their eyes. Court staff gaped, witnessing a decades-old power structure flip upside down. "Given today's extraordinary events," Abrams said, cutting through the tension, "I propose we adjourn until next week." Montgomery, grasping at his fading control, protested, "With all due respect, Your Honor, I'm still presiding judge until Friday. Why disrupt the schedule?" Catherine, unshaken in her casual attire, turned to the Richardsons. "Would your family agree to a short delay, with my promise that your case will get a fair and thorough hearing next week?" Mr. Richardson glanced at Montgomery, then at his daughter Emma, whose eyes shone with trust. "Yes, Your Honor, we would," he said. Was this the turning point they'd prayed for? The defense attorney leapt up, flustered. "Your Honor, Chief Justice, this is outrageous. We were about to settle." Catherine's voice cut through, calm but firm. "A settlement born of pressure and unequal representation isn't justice." Montgomery's face reddened. "In 30 years, I've never run an unfair proceeding," he barked. The room held its breath. Had anyone ever challenged him so directly? Abrams raised a hand, her authority absolute. "This isn't the place for this debate. Court is adjourned until Monday, when Judge Sullivan takes the bench." As people gathered their things, Catherine approached the Richardsons, her voice soft but resolute. "I want you to know your case will get the attention it deserves," she assured them. "Equal time, equal weight for your concerns." Emma's eyes welled up, tears of relief spilling over. "Thank you," she choked out. "We fought so long, and no one listened." Catherine nodded, her heart swelling. "That changes now." Across the room, Martha Jenkins was already prying Montgomery's nameplate from the bench, her hands trembling. Staff averted their eyes as Montgomery stormed toward his chambers, his planned farewell party now a painful afterthought. The defense attorney sidled up to Catherine, his tone cautious. "Judge Sullivan, I was just zealously defending my client's interests." Catherine met his gaze, unflinching. "Of course, counselor, and I expect you'll keep doing so, but within the bounds of fair procedure and respect for all." His forced smile wavered. "Absolutely, Your Honor," he muttered. Did he sense the new era dawning? As the courtroom emptied, Abrams touched Catherine's arm, her voice low. "This wasn't what I envisioned when I approved your observation plan." Catherine gave a faint smile. "I know, but it was necessary." Abrams raised an eyebrow, her tone dry. "You've made one heck of an entrance." Montgomery won't forget this humiliation. "It wasn't about humiliating him," Catherine said firmly. "It was about uncovering the truth of how justice works here." Abrams studied her, a spark of respect in her eyes. "Well, Judge Sullivan, you've got your work cut out for you." Catherine scanned the room, her courtroom. "Come Monday." "Yes," she agreed, "and I'm ready." Monday morning dawned crisp and bright. Catherine Sullivan stood before her mirror, adjusting her black judicial robe, the weight of responsibility settling like a familiar friend. The weekend news had exploded with her dramatic courtroom reveal. Legal blogs buzzing with debates, some slammed her tactics, others cheered her bold transparency. The judicial world was alight with her story. As she entered the courthouse, the shift was palpable. Gone was Friday's anonymity. Court officers nodded with deference. Attorneys paused to offer greetings. Even the security guard stood taller. She lingered at courtroom 3-3's doorway, her name now gleaming on the judge's entrance. Was this really her moment? The courtroom was packed, the air electric. The Richardsons sat up front, their faces bright with hope. The defense attorney, more subdued, chatted quietly with colleagues. Martha Jenkins approached, handing over a thick folder. "Your first day's docket, Judge Sullivan, and these are for you," she said, pointing to a small bouquet on the bench. A card from the staff tucked beside it. "Thank you, Martha," Catherine said, her voice warm. At exactly 9:00 a.m., she swept in. "All rise," the bailiff called, and the room stood as one. Taking her place at the bench, she surveyed the crowd: attorneys, plaintiffs, families, observers, all deserving fairness. "Be seated," she said. "Before we start, let me set the tone for this court." She leaned forward, her voice resolute. "Here, everyone will be heard. Everyone will be treated with dignity. Justice demands nothing less." Opening the first file, she announced. Richardson versus Carson Financial Advisors. Are both parties ready? And so began a new chapter of justice. If this story stirred your soul, remember, true dignity lies not in titles, but in how we uplift those with less power. Have you ever seen someone judged unfairly by their looks? Share below. Subscribe if you believe in stories that urge us to see beyond the surface and honor everyone's worth. Where are you watching from? Your support fuels these tales of what truly matters.